All right, no time to explain, gang. Welcome back, KingXeph here, back with just a little conversational video this time. No unpacks, no openings, and no gaming stuff at the moment. We're just gonna have a little conversation, which is gonna kind of be related to maybe a video or two coming, actually a couple of videos coming down in the very, very near future. But considering the fact that we focus on a lot of opening packs and between Lorcana and Yu-Gi-Oh! And mostly stuff in the TCG realm, and seeing what we pull out of those and seeing what does better boxes and blisters and all that other fun stuff, and opening up pretty much every Yu-Gi-Oh! Set and every Lorcana set as they drop. I wanted to get into a topic that, a lot of people that get into the trading card game, or at least in the collectible territory, which would be actually card grading. This is something that a lot of collectors do, or a lot of people who collect cards, especially sports cards, more or less, sports, comic books, almost anything that is really deemed collectible and valuable in pop culture. Grading ends up becoming a part of the conversation, as well as a topic for what you want in your collection, or if you want to send things to get graded off. So what necessarily is grading a card? Essentially, it's when you take one of your prize cards, whether a card is super valuable, or if it's something you want to get graded or immortalized, or for whatever reason of your personal desires. Most people will usually get it to increase the value of their card so they can sell it and flip it on the market, or in my case, a couple other things. But essentially, it's when you get a card that's encapsulated in a slab, very similar to this one. This is one of my Winged Dragon of Ra's that's actually usually always in the forefront of all of my videos. This isn't a graded slab. This is just a display slab. So usually it's just an acrylic case. This one has a stand and everything onto it with the front and the back, so you can actually see the card, and it's kind of protected inside of this casing. But with grading, same basic principle, except they actually rate the card and tell you what the integrity of the card is, like how well are the centering, the edges, and everything, and generally go from a 1 to 10 scale. Your major companies that do this are going to be PSA, Beckett, and CGC. Those are going to be the big three I see personally. Honorable mention to, I think it's AGS or ARS. It's a newer company in Japan. They've been doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff in Japan exclusively. Their slabs look really, really nice. I love how their slabs look. Hopefully, I will add some of those to my collection in the very near future, and hopefully they'll start taking grading orders from overseas, because you have to be in Japan. But let's stick to the big three, PSA being the number one, followed by Beckett, and then CGC. All three of these companies provide a service that allows you to send your collectibles, whether it's a trading card, comic books, autograph stuff, or whatever memorabilia, to get it encapsulated, slabbed, rated, and authenticated. In this process, you just generally call grading, and they grade it from a 1 to 10 scale. So basically, a 1 being poor, so you get 1s if the card is just completely damaged, and all that other fun stuff. In which case, if your card is damaged to that degree, I don't know why you would spend the money to get it graded, but some people do for the lulz. But of course, you would generally want to send some of your best looking cards and best looking collectibles out for that sake. And I kind of want to go over a couple the process of getting your cards graded, the pricing and everything, and my personal opinion on it, because I actually recently, about a month ago, I think June 4th was when they got my submission, I did send 6 cards to get graded. I sent both of my Enchanted Elsas that we pulled on the channel for Lorcana Chapter 1. I sent those to get graded. Mainly being, my reason for that per se was I had to. I have a foil binder for Lorcana, so I have a binder just for all the foil cards in the game. So be pulling 2 Elsas and not wanting to sell them, because that was the most expensive card in Chapter 1, and it still is the most expensive card in Chapter 1, even though Chapter 1 is no longer printed. I figured, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with both of them? Both of them can't be in the binder, so I was going to grade them both. Whichever one had the lower grade, I was going to put in the binder. Whichever one had the higher grade, I was going to keep in the slab. Fortunately for me, that card's value skyrocketed out of nowhere, and so I just made the decision to get them both graded. So they kind of been sitting on the shelf, kind of waiting, chilling for a little while, and I finally just pulled the trigger to send them out to get graded. So I sent both of those to get graded. I sent 2 cards from Ozzy from my graphics trading cards, which is very brand new. Hopefully they slab those. I really want them to slab. I don't expect them to get high grades, because Ozzy's trading cards are brand new and they're not really known. So hopefully you can add it to the database and put it in the cloud. And then I also sent a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the Kyber Corp briefcase. The QCR they came in the English one, as well as I believe my Magicians of Bonds and Times that I pulled from my Phantom Nightmare box. So I sent 6 cards out. They arrived to Beckett on June 4th, and I paid for the base pricing because I don't want to pay a lot more. I don't want to pay a lot of money for the grading, so I paid the base pricing, which should take about 45 business days. And ironically, they sent me emails saying that the grading process is finished, so I should be seeing those slabs coming back very, very shortly. When I get them back, I'll put a video out for you guys to show, see what the grades were and all the other fun stuff. But yes, so I sent the 6 cards out to get graded, and that process is coming back, and basically to, for the most part, one, get their actual certificate grade on their condition. They're packed fresh and they're in pretty much mint condition, so I expect for the most part 9s or higher. But also for the sake of, like, you know, my Elsas that I explained earlier, I wanted to keep that encapsulated, and my Blue Eyes, I wanted to get that encapsulated too. And then the reason I picked Beckett, which I'll go over in a very second, because I'm going to go through all 3 grading services. We're going to really focus more or less on PSA and Beckett. CGC I'm throwing in here as an honorable mention because they're another mainstream grading company. But in terms of TCGs like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Lorcana, a bunch of other things, your main 2 really are going to be PSA and Beckett, PSA being the top one due to speed. So let's go ahead and switch over the computer so I can show you guys some of their websites, their offerings, and their prices, and kind of go over their processes. So give me 1 second. Okay, so we're here on the PSA website. Essentially, to do any card grading, if you don't go to a convention where they actually have like the on-site grading facilities there, or you don't live near their headquarters to you know, hand deliver cards for them to do on-site grading, essentially you will fill out the grading services and everything. You do a submission, and then you ship the card out to them, and then they would grade it and they would ship it back. So let's go to PSA's pricing tier, and some pros and cons to it. So of course, PSA, one thing I don't like about them, I'll bring this up now, is that their cheapest prices are $15 and $19. So essentially $15 per card for any card value at $200 or less, with a turnaround time of 45 days. But you have to send a minimum of 20 cards to get this pricing, and you also have to be a collector club member, as well with the bulk option. The bulk option, of course, is for pretty much everything. $500 value or less with the same 45-day turnaround time. So these essentially, to get the lowest pricing outside of that, you have the $25 price tier, which is for pretty much anything else. So if you're not a member, then essentially you have to pay $25 per card to get it graded within 45 days with a value of $500 or less. One thing I hate about this is that you do have to be a member. I believe the membership for PSA is like $100 a year, if my mind serves me correctly. I can pull that up here while I'm looking at it. Let's see, join now. Let's just go pop culture. There it is. So there's 2. There's standard and there's premium. So it's $150 a year or $200 a year. With the $200 a year, they give you some extra credits, and I believe they give you a couple cards that you can get graded for free, if my mind serves me correctly. Credits, a bunch of other stuff. There might have been a promo. But there was a promo once upon a time where I think they gave you maybe like 4 free grading submissions with the collector membership. But you do need to pay for these membership plans in order to get that $15 to $19 grading option for them, which is kind of a bummer. Otherwise, you have to pay $25 per card. And then, of course, the prices go up from there. And really, the core of the pricing going up is faster turnaround times. So if you want to get your card back in 20 business days, it's $40 a card for that same value. For 10 days, it's $75 with a $1,500 value or less, followed by 5 business days for $130. Another 5 business days for really expensive cards for $250, and then $500 for the same 5-day turnaround time with a card value of $10,000 or less. So essentially, the amount you pay is going to be determined by how fast you want the cards back, as well as how much the card is actually valued and also what it's technically valued at if it pops a 10. One thing that PSA doesn't tell you in here is that if you ship a card out, let's say for instance you ship a card out for $25 and you get a PSA 10 and that card's value crosses that $500 fresh threshold, they will upcharge you accordingly. I don't know what the exact upcharge is because I haven't used them personally. I've heard a lot of ridiculous numbers based on a lot of certain cards that were shipped out to through PSA. But whatever that upcharge is, they will upcharge you based on that card's value, which a lot of people deem that as seeing as buying a PSA 10, which, like I said, I can't judge the validity of that because I've never shipped anything to PSA as of now for that. But that's a big major hit that I see, and that's not anything that's actually written or documented on the website. So for instance, let's say you send a card out, you get a 10, and usually that card is worth, let's say, $350, but at a 10 it's worth $1,000. They're going to upcharge you to ship you your card back with a PSA 10 rating, which is kind of trash, and really not. It's a business practice that I'm not personally a fan of. But of course, if you have a lot of bulk offerings and your cards are relatively inexpensive, that's not going to be a problem. But if you happen to send a card that happens to have a high value like that, which if your card has a stupid high value and you want to encapsulate it to make sure that the condition stays that way and that as it gets graded, 9 times out of 10 you're sending your card out to get graded anyway. So it's very important for that keynote on that one. But that's going to be the prices for PSA and how that kind of operates. Let's move over to Beckett. So I used Beckett personally. So that's where that's the company with which that I sent my cards to get graded. And then let me go to the pricing. Very similar pricing structure, a lot less complicated than PSA. So their base is the same, $15 and $18, but there's no membership needed for that. So essentially anybody can grade for $15 or $18. The difference between the two essentially is one, for the $15 tier, they say they give you a $3 upcharge for any 10s you get where the subgrades are added, but you don't get any subgrades with Beckett for that $15 pricing. And actually, this is a really good example of what the subgrades look like. So this is what a Beckett slab generally looks like. And let me see if PSA has actually a slab on their website that you can actually see. Do they have any photos? I should have probably looked this up a little bit earlier, but let me see if I can go to the store and pull up a nah, that's just for random stuff. All right, but essentially, I know it's really hard to see, but essentially this is what a PSA slab looks like. It has the red label and everything. I know it's very small for the screen. I might pull one up on eBay so you can get a better look of what one looks like. But Beckett slabs will generally look like this. As you can see, it kind of alternating. There's a clear slab with the Beckett logo, and then the label, which tells you what the grade is, as well as it tells you what it's rating. So for the $15 tier, this information here where it says centering, edges, corners, and surface, where they grade each category that determines the aggregate score of your card. You don't get that for the $15 tier. You just simply get the card's name, the information, and then the flat out grade with the serial number. For $3 more, you get the subgrade. So you actually get to see what deemed that card as whatever score it got. So of course, if you got a Beckett 8, and wanted to know exactly what made it an 8, then of course, if you get it with the subgrades, you can see what each category scored at, and then of course the aggregate of that will determine what the score of the actual card will be. And then from this point forward, you pay more for how fast you want the card back. So standard, which is 20 to 25 business days, is $35 a card, which is that cheaper than PSA? PSA 20 days was $40. So yeah, $5 cheaper than PSA. Express, which is 7 to 10 days, which is $80, and then the 2 to 3 business days, which is $125. So essentially, yeah, roughly about $5 cheaper than PSA. But one thing I will say about Beckett, and this is one of the major reasons why I picked Beckett in the first place, Beckett doesn't upcharge you. So if your card grades high, so let's say you ship a card out to get graded, you say it's valued at $100, and of course you get a 10 on it, and Beckett has 2 different 10s. They have a standard gold 10, which is essentially 3 10s and a 9.5, and then they have the black label, which is the 10, so that's a perfect 10 across the board. That is literally a perfect card. So Beckett has 2 different 10s, which gets a little bit confusing, and we can talk about that a little bit more in the future. The black label is what's sought after in collectors for the most part, if you can get one. But let's say you grade it and get it at a 10, and now the card's value jumps from $100 to $700. It would never leap that high, but I'm just going to use that for an example. They don't upcharge you. So if your declared value card is a little bit less than that and you get a 10 and the card's value jumps, they do not charge you extra for that. You simply pay Beckett for how many cards you're shipping to get graded and how fast do you want them to graded. Plain and simple. This is the biggest reason why I chose Beckett, because I knew for a fact that if my Elsa's got a 10, PSA was going to upcharge me. Because right now, let's see, I'm going to do this on the fly as well. Let me look up Elsa. Go to TCG player. Elsa. I'm sorry, my keyboard is like a little further away from me than it should be. Elsa Enchanted. Here we go. Winter Spirit. So let's see. Right now, the market price, there are people selling this card for about $750 right now. The market price of this, because the card's kind of been, as you guys can see from this trend line, this card was at $1,200 at one, actually $1,300 at one point in time. It took a dip, and it's been slowly declining a little bit, little by little. But the market base value of this card is $942.60. Let me actually look at the pricing tiers from high to low, because I know you're gonna have a bunch of sellers that are gonna sell it for less. Do I view that in reverse? I want to do it by pricing and shipping. Item price, that's weird. They used to have an option for you to change it from like high to low. I guess I just have to go down all the way to the very end. Oh yeah, well you have some absurd people. Oh, these are graded. There we go. The PSA 10 for $2,000. So a lot of people on TCG Player have certain cards that are the graded option. They just have to put in an extra, but the rest of them that don't have it graded, $1,100. But the average pricing going forward, for the most part, is about $950. If I sent this to PSA and I was to get a 10 for it, I would have had to pay around, well, it would have cost me $75 to get it graded. But also, if it valued high and if they just upcharge you for the price difference of the value, then I would have had to pay an additional $50 to get that card back graded with the 10 on it. So that was really the major reason why I chose Beckett, because I knew for a fact, by chance, if I were to get a high grade on Elsa, PSA was going to upcharge me. And on top of that, I would have had to pay more money to PSA to get that card graded. So that was actually the biggest reason why I chose Beckett in the first place. But also the other thing with Beckett is actually the harsher grader. Because of how their black labels are set up and because of how in-depth they are with their grading, they are known to be the company that grades the harshest. And I figured that for a card that would have a high value and I really want to know what its true grade is, I want them to grade it as if it's a prize. I don't want to have any leniency and a bunch of other stuff, which I could have sent it to PSA, and I'm going to do that in the future. Well, not that card in particular, but a project that I'll announce at the very end. I wanted it at its harshest grade, so that way if I got a 10, I knew it was a 10. It's just like, hey, Beckett graded this a 10. They're the harsher of the graders. This card is super minty and all that other fun stuff. But that's how they did. They also have extras in here. So for autograph cards, they charge $5 extra. For oversized cards, it's $8 extra. If you want to relabel, it's $10. If you want them to do just a review of the card raw, they don't add that extra to it. They give you the graded card review. I probably should have did this. They might include it in the box. It says it's $0 per card to the grading fee. They'll probably just attach it to my pack when I get. And then there's a recase where if you have an older Beckett case, you want it in a newer one, or it gets damaged or whatever, it's $10 to get it traced. And then down here, I should have scrolled down to the bottom. They basically show you the difference in the labels. So anything that's below a 9.5, so 9s below have a silver label. Golds are basically the 10 and the 9.5, which are pristine and then gem mint, and then a perfect pristine, which is the black label, which is the 10, which is essentially this Joker right here. And that's, you see a black label in the Beckett, you know that card's mint. That card is the king of the crop of mint and value at that point in time. And then for honorable mentions, let's go to CGC. CGC is more known in the collecting community for me personally that I've looked into it. They're more known for comic books, grading comic books. They do grade trading cards and other items as well, but they're really more known for comic books more than anything else. So, but they do trading card stuff. Let me see if I can find lobby cards. Where is signature pressing? Where is? Oh, because this took me to CGC Comics. Let me go to CGC Grading. I thought it's the same website. It might be. Card grading services. Yeah, it's two different links. There's CGC Comics and the CGC Cards. So it's the same company, but all that other fun stuff. where was their pricing at? Grading services. Let's do TCG and non-sports. Boom, here we go. So they have a bulk submission, $11 a card. And then they also have memberships as well. Associate/premium, you get it for $9.90 a card. If you're elite, you get it for $8.80, so you get a little bit of a mix. Submit a mix of at least 25 cards worth up to $500 each under the bulk tier. So of course, you have to submit 25 cards to the bulk option. And then for the economy, it's $14 a card. So as you can see, CGC is actually the cheapest in terms of how much they charge for grading. So they charge $14 to get it graded. This is for cards that are worth $1,000 or under the economy tier. And then they have Express, which is $50 a card, and then Walkthrough, which is $150. They do not give you times. That's the only thing I don't see in here, is that they don't give you a time frame of when it'll be back. And then of course with the membership discounts on that side, but it's pretty reasonable in price. They're probably, of the three, they're definitely the cheapest. So probably it's a big reason why a lot of people like to go to CGC, is because they get to save a little bit more money. But they're pretty decent on their grading scale from what I've heard as well. They recently just changed their labels and their slabs. Their new labels I really don't care for. Their older labels I like better. But also their slabs are really, really paper thin, and I really don't care for that so much. But in the grander schemes, Beckett and PSA are going to be your two main graders of the two, of anything else in between. And then essentially just to grade them, get out of PSA, get out of TCG player. You essentially just go to submit. I'm going to just kind of walk through the submission, go as a guest. And then, yeah, you pick your tier, and then you look up your card. So I'm just going to say Elsa. What was the name of that card? Actually, Elsa Queen. Excuse me. You know what? Screw it. I'm just going to use whatever the first card they give me. A 2013 Panini Frozen album sticker. That, how many you have, what the declared value is, and then of course they give you the pricing tier at that point in time. Whether you want to add autographs and all that stuff. The card looks like the card is selected had an autograph attached to it. And then essentially you would just do that, package the cards out, and ship them out. That's pretty much the entire process. And they go from top to bottom: item type, service, item details, shipping, review order, and then payment details. They don't actually take your money until they receive the card. So when they receive the card and properly invoice it, then they actually charge the card. So it's one of those things where it's like you're not paying for it immediately, but you will be paying for it in the near future. And then PSA operates the exact same way. So as a little project, of course, that basically is the whole process of what grading is and how to grade things. When I do get my return back from Beckett, I will do a video on those results. They do email them to you. They email you the status, and then if you want to see the grades, you can actually open up the email or go into your account and see what the grades are. I have not looked at them. I want it to be a surprise. I don't want to know beforehand before I get it. So I will be doing a reaction video to that. But I'm also going to do a challenge as well, because I do have cards set aside that I do want to get graded, and a couple other cards I'm going to be doing submissions for. And I have a couple bulk duplicates that I want to get graded. So what I'm going to do, actually probably within the next couple months, and I'll be documenting this as well, I'm going to walk through the grading process from top to bottom of setting up that order. And then I'm going to send some cards to PSA. I'm going to send some cards to Beckett. Both under their base tiers. So unfortunately, PSA is going to cost me more money, because PSA is $25 compared to $18. But for the same 45-day turnaround time, I'm going to send them both out. Hopefully, I'm going to expect roughly the same grades. I'm going to see how long it takes for the cards to come back, because Beckett's biggest downfall, which is what I've been hearing online, is that their customer service kind of sucks compared to PSA, because PSA will do like a tier system, like very similar to how Beckett had in the order process, where they'll let you know. They give you full information on card shipped, card arrived, is being under review, it was graded, is being slabbed, is being shipped back. They like tell you from top to bottom with meters. Beckett really, they kind of label it in your order, but they don't do it as nice. They basically email you when they get the card, when they invoiced it, when it's done grading, and then when they ship it back. But sometimes they kind of send that stuff very delayed. And so they have some things that they're kind of been revamping and working on and re-improving from what I've heard online and from different changes in leadership within the companies. So it's going to be a little bit more a little bit more of a challenge. So we're going to put those two head to head, and I'm going to see which one comes back the quickest and all the other stuff, and then look at those scores, just to give like a personal firsthand experience for those that haven't graded anything. And then my advice to any of you guys that are watching this for informational sake and are looking potentially into getting cards graded, my recommendation to you is, of course, if you know you have a card that's valuable and that's in great condition, ship it out to get graded, to at least slab it up so that way that condition gets locked. Because the way I see grading is, it's a way for you to lock the condition of the card and thus end all types of negotiations. A lot of times when people want to trade and barter, they may try to find whatever reason to get less money out of it, or spend as little money as humanly possible. So one way I see grading as, it's a way of sitting there saying, hey, this card is a 9, which means it's mint, it's near mint or whatever. There's no haggling on firmness of the card. You either want it or you don't. That's one way I see it, more or less than anything else. A lot of people have the conception as well that if a card gets a high grade, that it becomes super valuable. Yes and no. If a card is really, really cheap and it gets a high grade, yes, it would be more expensive than getting the card raw at that cheap price, but it's not going to astronomically make the card that's like worth $1 worth $100 or $200 or whatever like that. It just doesn't work that way. There are some cards that it can work that way, but usually most of those cards are valued at more than $1 at that point in time. So usually like the card raw is like $20 or $50. So if you get a grade at a 10, you can probably get like 150 out of it potentially, depending on the card. But that's generally how I see it. So my recommendation to those that are going to be getting into grading and trying it out, only get the cards graded if you know the card has value and it's in great condition, because if the card is not in great condition, it's not worth you dropping the 18 to however much money you're going to spend to get it graded in the first place, because it does cost money. It's not free. So you have to take the card, get it graded, and if you grade low, then you basically threw the grading price, that cost for the grading away. But if it grades high, you can potentially sell it and make your money back. But if it's just a card that you just want to get slabbed, so like, of course, ultimately at the end of the day, if you're going to get your cards graded, do it for you. Do it because that's what you want to do, and put that money aside to how you want to do that ultimately. But otherwise, the other reason I would say getting a card graded is just because you want it in a slab. If you just like a card and you just want it in a slab and want to get it graded, have at it, Hoss. It's your money. Do what you want to. If that card has sentimental value to you, or is one of your favorite cards, and you're just like, I just want to put it in a slab, go ahead and do it. But I would say not to try to get into grading with the expectation of getting high scores to flip it, unless you really know what you're doing, you know how to evaluate the cards and make it become as profitable as humanly possible. But that's just my recommendation to you guys. So I have any questions towards grading. But outside of that, any comments or anything, leave them in below. Give me your opinion. Tell me what you thought about card grading. Do you collect graded cards? Are you going to be shipping things to get graded? And then when I get my return back, we'll go over that. And then when in a couple months, when I have a couple more things to ship out to both companies, we will go over that process from top to bottom and see what has the better return and which has the better turnaround time, to really see what is the better service from top to bottom for that money at that point in time. And it'll also help you gauge your guys' perspective and opinion if you guys want to get something graded and which company to kind of go with. But hopefully the information I gave you guys is very valuable if you're into grading. If you're not into grading, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it anyway. Give us a like, comment, and subscribe at the bottom. But I like to give a little bit more of some of this informational stuff and collecting and gaming news and all that other fun stuff just for you guys' knowledge, because I know sometimes a lot of it can be very confusing and sometimes you may not be able to find all the proper resources in the right directions, and I want to make sure to pass down any knowledge that I have to help you guys out, and to also make sure I fill in the gaps, because there's a lot of times where a lot of people will tell you something, or they'll tell you all the pros or something, but they never tell you the cons. And I like to go over both. I like to go over what's the good, what's the bad, what's the pro, what's the con, to not just oversell you on something or just to convince you to do something. I want you to know all your options and what you're looking for, and also to take that to heart for me personally, because like I said, that's the biggest reason I chose Beckett, was because I didn't want to get upcharged if my card's graded high. That's just not something I wanted to do, nor did I want to spend the extra money just because I carry two $900 cards. I didn't want to pay the $75 to $100 to get the card graded. I don't like that idea, even though it would have came back quick. I just don't like that idea. Maybe if they did it to where there's a $45 day rate across the board, to make it cheaper, then fine, that's on PSA, but we'll go over all of that little stuff later. But if you like this video, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And look out for more videos. I will have another unboxing tomorrow. I don't know if it'll be an OCG set or a TCG set yet. As well, I'll be seeing Deadpool tonight as well. So it's gonna be kind of a busy day. But outside of that, this is KingXeph. No time to explain. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.